Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our final episode of the Two Pence Worth series. Throughout this series so far, we have been hearing the stories, the successes, and the challenges of female founders in climate tech. I got inspired to do this series when I learnt the fact that in 2022, for every £1 of VC money, less than 2 pence went to companies with female founding teams. And considering that 20% of UK businesses are all female led, you can see just how disproportionate that 2% of funding really is. So I wanted to try and do my part to shine a spotlight on the achievements of some amazing female founders in climate and try to provide a space where we could celebrate their wins, acknowledge the challenges that they face, but most importantly, share the resources, the advice and the tips that have helped them along the way. And today, to round out what has been a wonderful series, I am joined by Nikki Gaddo, founder of GoodMine. GoodMine is a circular platform helping us to throw away better, helping consumers to find the right places to take their unwanted stuff. An economist at heart, Nikki spent over 13 years working in investment banking before her passion for climate and sustainability led her into the world of sustainable finance and social impact funds. But it was a broken coffee machine during lockdown that fueled that fire in her, which became GoodMine. So, Nikki, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Good, my absolute pleasure. So we always kick off these episodes by asking our founders to tell us a bit more about their business. So I've given a very brief description of what GoodMine is, but in your own words, can you add a kind of a bit more flavour, I suppose, to what is GoodMine, what's the platform, what are you building, and who is it for?
Okay, so I have a very long-winded way of explaining what GoodMine is because actually something like we're building doesn't actually exist at the moment. And the main reason why it doesn't exist is because we're building something for the circular economy. And at the moment, everything is set up for a linear economy. So I appreciate that some people listening might not know what the difference is between a circular economy and a linear economy is. It's basically the concept of maximizing the resources that we have. So we all have to live on the same planet. There is a finite amount of resources. So we need to make sure that those resources are used really wisely. And so that comes from, making sure when we take something, we design it well. We're not designing anything that doesn't need to exist in the first place. When we design it, it's designed to last, and then it exists, and then we maximize that product, the usage of that product, so it's used again and again, it's repaired, and then ultimately when it's its end of life, it's retired, and then it's taken apart, and all of those resources that have been invested in that product then go back into the system. So at the moment, that kind of infrastructure just doesn't exist, and it's one of the kind of major goals across the globe that we all need to transition to a circular economy. So there's a very long-winded way of getting to explain what GoodMine is about, but we're just trying to implement some infrastructure that just doesn't exist. So when you buy a new product, at the moment, you buy it and then you own it, and then it's your responsibility to find how to get rid of that product if you don't need it anymore or it's broken, and then it's up to the waste system to really figure out what to do with it. Or you might be able to rehome it. The problem in transitioning to the circular economy, it's very, very confusing. I'm just talking in particular to kind of consumer products, which is where we're focused at, is because we buy stuff and we've got into the behavior of, you buy stuff, you use it, and then, when you no longer want it, you pass it on, and you've got your set ways of doing it. Maybe you take it to a charity shop, maybe you just take it to the household recycling centre, maybe you live on the street. But there are so many options out there, and the circular ecosystem is growing every day. We've got some amazing innovators in the space, upcycling anything from inflatables to bicycle tires to there's a big push to enable repair as well.
Yeah.
And I come across these innovators all the time, and small businesses. There's a small business. One of the programs that I was working with, innovation programs, I came across this individual who wanted to set up a secondhand electronics shop, but he just didn't have any supply of the secondhand electronics shop because everybody takes it to the dump when something's not working, and he wanted to take broken stuff and repair it. So people just aren't aware of the innovation going on in the circular ecosystem, or where to take things.
Yeah.
So that's like my intro. And now what is GoodMine? So what we are building is basically an easy way to digitally connect those dots. So you, as let's say the custodian of a product, you've bought that product, you're owning it, you no longer want it. We kind of give you an easy way to do the right thing with that product by kind of directing you to the right place for the product in its current condition. So it's like a bit of a matchmaking platform for unwanted goods. So between the unwanted good and the ultimate destination, the best circular outcome for that product, so that we're always seeking to maximize the outcome for that product. Now, the crux is here is, we're totally non-judgmental, because people are busy and they need to, sustainable behaviors. Everybody wants to do that and aspires to do that, but there's lots of barriers to do it, because the system just isn't designed for that. It's designed for us to throw away. So we're making this really easy by creating an app for individuals just to use. So it's free, and you just search on it, and then you're kind of matched with your local best next user or recipient for your unwanted stuff.
That's
so
amazing.
There,
And so
long and short.
I love that. And that context is really helpful, because I think sometimes, actually, I know perhaps I can even be guilty of the fact that I exist in such an echo chamber of people that know all these terminology, like circular economy. So actually, to preface by giving that context is really valuable. So thank you for that. But yet that's so valuable, because there are so many times where I will have an item and I'll think, right, well, I'll take it to the charity shop, and they go, sorry, we don't accept those. And then beyond that, you think, well, I could put it on Facebook Marketplace. I could put it on Olio and see if anybody wants it on there. But beyond that, being able to connect with, local nurseries that would take children's toys, or a women's refuge that would take, clothing or whatever, is really, really useful. So that's amazing. I would definitely use it.
Thank you. A new customer.
Inspiration for it, because I mentioned in the intro there about it was a broken coffee machine during lockdown that made you go, why doesn't this exist? Talk me through that story, where the idea came from, and then that kind of early days of, because it was only 2021, wasn't it? So of getting this off the ground.
Yeah. So my coffee machine, actually, like, my husband's Italian and he really cares about his coffee. And we had this quite fancy coffee machine that had done its service, and it just had a broken thermostat. So the coffee was not coming out the right temperature. And I was researching. Obviously everything was shut down, so this made it like multiple times more difficult, but we loved this coffee machine, and I was just trying to research how to fix it. So I contacted, there is a very useful repair directory in North London, so I checked there, emailed loads of people, nobody responded. I got in contact with a manufacturer who just basically said, can't do anything, no spare parts. And then I was like, why is this so hard? I just want my coffee machine fixed. I don't want a new one. I can see that it's all kind of, everything else is working. It's just that thermostat. I watched a guy on YouTube fixing one of these machines, and he's an expert, and he sliced his hand open when it was trying to open the casing. I was like, okay, I'm quite game for a lot of these things, but I'm not going to do that, because I don't trust myself not causing myself some massive injury. So that coffee machine sat in our living room for a whole year, just staring at me whilst I was working. I was doing some contracting at the time, and I couldn't get rid of it. And ultimately we had to take it to the household recycling, and it broke my heart, because I was quite attached to that coffee machine anyway, but it was just taking up space, and I literally had done everything I could, and I'm determined about these things. It defeated me, and I was just like, why is this so hard? And when I was contacting the manufacturer and the repair people, and one of the problems is the thermostat wasn't available, and I started, me being like I like when I see a problem, I'm just like, why can't I fix this? So I started looking into like the legal obligations of manufacturers. And then that kind of led me down a rabbit hole into like looking into waste legislation, like why can't they be accountable? And then that kind of took me into like the waste strategy. Why, and some of the theory diagrams about the circular economy. Like I was aware of the circular economy, but probably not the terminology at the time. And so I did some trained myself up in circular economy. I was doing a certificate in ESG investing at the time. And all of these kind of little nuggets kind of connected, and I was like, okay, well, ESG, those guys who, like, ESG investing is when people doing investing in like good companies, good causes, but they actually need reporting and data in order to drive those investments. And then I looked and I was like, there's no data which is kind of informing people how to, like how to make good investments about waste. Why does that data not exist? And so I kept looking at all of these things, and I just saw this massive data gap, and I was like, why does that not exist? And then sitting that alongside like these theoretical diagrams, you've got the circular economy diagrams where you've got these beautiful butterflies, and things are meant to keep on going round. But then at the crux of it, you've got I don't know whether you know the famous diagram, the butterfly diagram I'm talking about, but in the corner of that diagram, there's a little person sitting there who has to direct goods to the right place. And I was like, that is me. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, that's me with my coffee machine. So this whole thing is connected, and I'm a bit of a systems thinker. So I was just like, all these things, data is not there, everybody's thinking that people know how to do this when actually they don't. I went into the policy, and when you look into this particular part of reuse and kind of redistribution, there's like this big fuzzy language where nobody really knows what to do, and it's because the data is not there. The data doesn't exist at all. Like, it's very segregated. And so I was like, okay, well, we need to find a way to consolidate that data, number one, for everybody's benefit, and then two was like thinking, how do I monetize that data? I can't, there are a couple organizations, mainly NGOs, who do try to consolidate some of that data, but that's not sustainable. We need like this as a system, like we need this ecosystem to exist. And so that is basically, it started at this coffee machine, but that is how like the whole kind of, it grew and grew and grew and grew into this massive vision. And I was like, okay, so let's try to start fixing this. And it is a complex problem, which means that in itself, GoodMine is a response which is quite complex in our business model and what we're building, but it's a complex response to a complex solution. But the outcomes and services that we're providing, so this easy kind of signposting service for consumers is quite intuitive. Like, when I describe it, everybody's like, oh yeah, it's a really needed service. Yet for councils, which is partly how we're going to launch. We're launching our pilot in a couple of weeks' time in Islington, so super excited about that. So we're partnering with councils who are interested in waste prevention to basically help us promote the tool and give the tool to their residents so that they can collect the data, get a better picture of what's going on in their local economy, so that they can support individuals to set up circular businesses, identify gaps. Maybe there's a whole bunch of toasters in Islington that are getting ditched because there's no one around to fix them. And so you can only really kind of identify those opportunities when you can actually have the data to see those gaps. And then on top of that, then we're kind of the next stage, once we've got enough users, will be to kind of launch it into the retail sector, so that actually retailers have an additional engagement point with their customers, like you're adding additional value, you're helping them do the right thing, but equally you're getting the data to feed back into better products and better supporting your customers to do the right thing with those products. So it's a whole ecosystem, but like we have to build it in little pieces, and it's very important that all of these stakeholders are involved. because there's no way that one person, like, you can't just tell consumers, you must be able to take these things to the right people or places, because that's not fair. That's not like it's not solely the responsibility of the consumers to know what to do. So yeah, hopefully we're breaking down these kind of problems and just, you know, connecting the dots so that the whole system becomes that much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've recently, so you've got this new pilot starting in a couple of weeks, which you mentioned with Islington Council, which is very exciting, and recently won a grant as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how was
So
that process?
yeah, so I have to say the Innovate UK. So we've won 3 Innovate UK grants, which is incredible. We're so lucky to have got them because they're so competitive. But we've been very specific and targeted in terms of the competitions that we've applied for, just to make sure that we kind of invest the time in, you know, into the right kind of competitions, because these
Yes.
bids take a very long time to write. And, you know, the one that we've just won, which is the Net Zero Digital Accelerator, we applied for in collaboration with Islington Council.
Okay.
So, you know, it was really key to have their support, and Islington Council have been amazing because they've been supporting us from like day one. They gave us our first kind of circular economy grant, which, you know, so it feels really wonderful to kind of have gone round all like full circle to talk to them initially about the, you know, the vision and what we wanted to build, and now actually to be able to trial it with them
Yeah.
is so exciting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And how have you found, sort of, as a woman going through this founder journey, and as a sole female founder as well? How's that experience been? And do you feel you faced adversity being a woman on that journey, or how has it been for you?
So I'd say, like, from my banking career, where you know, you get quite hardened to being in a male dominated environment. So I have to say that experience has made me quite resilient.
Yes.
And I think, you know, it also made me not afraid to ask questions or ask for help, because
Mm.
what I was doing in banking, you know, often I didn't know the answers. So I would go and just, you know, go and ask people. I'd find people who I think know the answer, and I would go and ask them. So, no, in terms of seeking support as a sole founder and a sole female founder, I found that, like, actually people have been quite forthcoming and, you know, wanting to offer me that soft support,
Yeah.
which has been great. Um, you know, GoodMine is so complex that it's very hard to just like, you have to pick, you know, it's almost like I've had to draw in expertise at the right points at the right time. I would have loved to have, you know, more support, but, you know, just it's almost like I didn't have time to find, you know, the people to help me along the journey. But, you know, so I've had these key partners come in along the way, which has been amazing. So, you know, amazing environmental consultants, tech people, advisors, and everything. Um, what has been really kind of surprising though for me, because bearing in mind I've got this kind of mindset from banking, like, I've been told no a lot of times, so that doesn't bother me. I know that that can be a big kind of obstacle for some, but that doesn't bother me. But what does bother me is that when I have had calls with or kind of discussions with investors, I feel like I might be interpreting this wrong, but, like, sometimes some of the language used is a little bit patronizing,
Okay.
or I noticed in some pitching that I was asked questions which were different to what men were asked, and as though I just didn't know really what I was talking about. And then I can quickly address those because I do know what I'm talking about, but
Yeah.
it's just annoying.
Yes.
And I'm fundraising at the moment. I think and I haven't had a lot of time to do as much as I want in terms of kind of engaging with investors. But as a sole founder, you get this, you already get this, no, we'd rather be working with kind of two founders, because I guess, and I totally understand that it's like spreading the risk. Somebody leaves, or also it's so intense that it's good to have a bit more resource in the company. But I think the fundraising aspect is one where actually, when you said at the beginning all those stats about how little money gets to female founders, I feel like being a sole founder is like one obstacle in itself, which I can understand logically. The female founder element is just, I get asked these different questions. It's almost like I feel like there's this barrier, even before I've got there. And it's just hard, and it's frustrating, and I'm still raising, and maybe ask me in 6 months time whether it's different. But I just I would like to be going, in a nutshell, I think there's lots of soft support, but it's money. I need money. I know what I'm doing, I just need money.
That's it, exactly. And you're so right. And I think that a lot of the women that I've interviewed throughout this series have said the same, have said that it's most evident when speaking to, when fundraising and when speaking to investors, that there's almost this layer of cynicism that's there from the outset. And it's almost like the investors are coming into the room going, right, my base point is no, but you need to convince me otherwise, rather than going in with my base point is yes, and I'm going to look for reasons to say no. Does that make sense? It's that sort of
but it's sometimes some of the language. Like I remember my first call with VC, I was told, oh, your business sounds more like a project. And I'm like, I found that actually, I look back at, it's something that stayed with me. So it bothered me. This is not like, I haven't built this as a project. I have worked very hard to make sure that we have a viable business model. I am monetizing based on actual other business models that I've seen succeed. Everything has been built using not just like market research from the product angle, but also looking at business models, like how do I go to market, how do
You've got a degree in economics and 13 years in banking. You're not going to go into it for a hobby.
No. So I found that so rude. And I guess you just smile through it. People think that's an okay thing to say, but I found that very, like, don't say that. Don't ever say that to someone who's put so much into building a business.
Absolutely. And I wonder if partly as you go through that fundraising journey, the background that you do have in banking and in economics will mean that perhaps you're going into that a little bit better prepared, even though than some female founders will. I've read a really interesting stat this week. I was doing some research for something, and it was a JP Morgan study that said that on average, female founders give away 10% more equity when fundraising than their male counterparts do, which I thought was really interesting. And I wonder why that is. Is that because women are generally going in perhaps less informed generally? I don't know, because they're less likely to have come from a banking or an investment or a financial background. Or is it that there is a sort of more of an unfair power dynamic in the negotiation, and therefore women are more likely to give away more? But yeah, it really surprised me.
You know what? It might be generosity, right? So right now, like, I'm very grateful for the help that I get, right? And for the right, person and the right support, I would give away equity. I've been in the fortunate situation where we've been majority grant funded, which has brought us here. And basically we've been grant funded because I haven't had access to any other sources of funding. Like I haven't been able to find investors in any other way. So so actually from my perspective, I've done very well in retaining quite a lot of equity. But or it might be trying to draw in kind of help, maybe a confidence issue, because you want to share the burden more, and kind of not wanting to be so hardcore, work-life balance. I do think there will be an element of not knowing what someone is worth, or how much to give away. And that's where I think advisors are really helpful. There's actually, like, when there's not that much online resource, which websites or anything that help you figure that stuff out, because it's to do with like the valuation of your business, the role, how long they're going to be there, the value that they're going to add, the skill set, and all this sort of stuff. And I come from a banking background, but the whole kind of equity kind of packages for founders or co-founders, or like hiring staff, is a totally new thing to me. And that's where, like, talking to people like yourselves and consultants and advisors has been really helpful, just to understand that. But again, there's not much online, because people, I guess, at startups, people come on at different times.
Yeah,
This is where you're more of an expert here than me, but it's just so opaque.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It is. And it is, pulling all that information together is really difficult and time consuming. And yeah, there's a whole business there and someone streamlining that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, ideas. So what are the resources that have helped you along the way, Nikki? Because we always round these episodes out by giving some really good kind of, I suppose, signposting that other female founders can use on their journeys. So the first resource that we ask people to give us is a people-based resource. So a network, a community, an organization that has supported you through your journey and that you would recommend to others.
So I have a few.
The more the better.
I would give it, yeah. So I would, first of all, because I started GoodMine and I live in Islington, I would give a massive shout out to Islington Council. And that's like a really, maybe an unusual place to start, because I guess they were just, their kind of a local economies team and their waste team were just so supportive. And I think they were like, there's this crazy woman, she wants to do something crazy, but they gave me the grant, and then they connected me with other local businesses within the community. So that was like the first kind of taste of community that I had. They also connected me with Read London, who are the experts in circular economy for London and for London Council. So Read London have been amazing as well. They've kind of connected me into another community, and so it's kind of building on that. The game-changing one, though, for me was when I joined Alia, Impact Accelerator. I know you've spoken to Alex Bertels on here as well, and we were part of the same cohort, and we met there. So we are like that support network from Alia was fantastic. And we're still in contact, we give each other support. So it's like different, let's say different support for different things. So Islington have been amazing in terms of the specialism for my building my business. Read London have been amazing at connecting me to the circular economy people. But then from the from the founders and mental health and like asking stupid questions, I'd say that Alia has been fantastic. And then on top of that, with raising, I'm raising with Founder Catalyst. And so they've got a fantastic network on there as well. But the last one, I'm like hitting you with loads of them. The Female Founders Rise.
That's had several mentions this series. Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I've made so many fantastic connections to female founders there, new people in other kind of verticals, who at different stages of raising, which is great. And it's just, and within all of these communities, you come across the same people, which again is quite nice. So again, that's another kind of element of, don't just join one network, you're doing lots of networks, and then it's another way of like recognizing people and supporting people. And when you give, also people, you get back. So that's probably the biggest thing, is like when you join these networks, they're only as valuable as much as you're willing to participate and engage with them. Otherwise, it's just introducing yourself to people who you might never see again.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. That's, and like you said, you can't just have one, right? Because there are different things have added something different to your journey in different
Yeah.
ways. So yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And then the second one is any sort of media-based resources that you would recommend. So that's like book, podcast, TED Talk, anything like that that people should check out.
I'm so specialist in what I look at, because book. I don't know. You know what? I think rather than recommending a specialist like founder type book, I would just say read, like for pleasure, because I think when I basically Google or ask people stuff. I don't tend to go to books themselves. I don't have a lot of time. Obviously, like one of my biggest inspirational books is by Kate Rayworth, The Donut Economy. Like it's just, she's fantastic and the concept is that, but that's kind of quite niche and not very kind of founderish. Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that question. I think like a lot of the time I spend when I have a question, I literally go through LinkedIn or go through my network and I will go and ask someone. I don't tend to spend too much time kind of getting inspired from books or particular things because I just don't have time. I think this might come back to the fact that I'm a sole founder. Don't have time to like invest in doing like so much, research for building the business, but like specific questions I will just go and ask.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. No, fair enough. But Donut Economy, Kate Rayworth would be one that you did enjoy. Yeah. It's a great book. And she's been interviewed lots. I think if you just Google her name on Spotify, there's so many podcasts that she features on, and she's fascinating. She's great.
Amazing, yeah.
Like a proper disruptor. Yeah. And the final one being a business role model. And we had somebody give us a company actually, rather than an individual. So that's an option as well. And they don't have to be climate focused, but is there anyone out there in the business world that you look up to or admire?
Oh, it has to be both Olio. I love Olio. I love how the vision of Olio, the engagement with the community. It's this fantastic hybrid model. They've grown so much, they're making so much impact. They've also inspired lots of people. So yeah, it's definitely, I would pick Olio, but yeah, if I was going to name, definitely my top one would be them.
And again, they have been the most chosen on this series so far. And we actually interviewed Sasha last week. So if anybody missed that episode, go check it out. She was wonderful, as we fully expected she would be. Brilliant. That's so great, Nikki. Thank you so much for sharing those recommendations. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Best of luck with the pilot and everything you've got going on over the coming months. I'm sure it'll all be fantastic. And hopefully we'll be able to do a follow-up series where we can catch up with everybody and hear how they're all getting on in the future. But for now, thank you to Nikki. Thank you to everybody that's joined us and listened, not just to this episode, but to all of the others in the series. I really appreciate it. This is us over and out now for this series, but there will be further series coming to you. If you missed any of the episodes, go and check them out on my LinkedIn profile, on our Above and Beyond YouTube channel, and also on Acast and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.